I have found that this product here works extremely well, not only as a release agent for your pattern. In other words, if you're making a urethane mold of a plaster piece, what have you, it works great for that, to release the rubber from the urethane rubber from that pattern or from that sculpture. But it also works well to release resin, and when I say resin, I'm all inclusive here, polyester, epoxy, and polyurethane from that same mold. And the key is you want to take that casting out of the mold as soon as it's set. In other words, don't leave it in the mold any longer than you have to, especially in the case of polyurethanes. These resins, over a long period of time sitting in the mold, there are some chemicals that will migrate from the casting into the mold. Because the mold, if you look at the mold on a microscopic level, it's like a sponge. And so it wants to absorb a lot of these things. And in doing so, you're going to get adhesion. And so the urethane resins on a urethane mold, they kind of have an affinity for each other. And again, over time, where this resin right here is going to set in 20 minutes, take it out in 25. I've had cases where people have made castings and they left the casting in there overnight. Guess what? They were like welded together, even with a release agent. So it's important that you not only use a good release agent, but get the casting out as soon as you can. You know, release agents, we've got a whole section in the store of just release agents. And we buy release agents from a half a dozen different suppliers because they all make different kinds of products. But it's important, you know, again, going back to your analysis of the process, you go to the end of the process, decide what your casting is going to be. If you've already got a mold in place, that's going to dictate what your mold release agent is going to be.
There you go.
If you've got an idea in mind and you want to start, you know, from the back end forward and do, you know, casting material, molding material, that's going to change how some of that dynamics might be. But at the end of the day, it's important to evaluate the whole process. Application is important. So if we had a rubber mold, typically on a urethane rubber mold, you'd spray this on, take a dry, clean brush, brush it out, make sure all the little nooks and crannies have the application of release agent, let that dry, spray it again, let that dry thoroughly, make sure there's no moisture in there, and then pour your part. Okay? If you do that, you'll have a successful outcome every time.